The Storm Prediction Center is currently forecasting a pretty good chance of severe weather over the Midwest by the time we approach the Monday timeframe early next week. So to take a look at the area, we do see portions of Iowa, Missouri, Kansas, Nebraska, Oklahoma, as well as Texas are involved under 15% chance and then a 30% chance, pretty much right up along the Interstate 35 corridor between Oklahoma City, extending potentially as close as far south as Dallas, the Dallas-Fort Worth area. And you're probably thinking that this chance is relatively low. And yes, while it looks relatively low right now, typically the Storm Prediction Center is a lot more conservative with its forecasts when it's this far out. Because if we were to take a look at the how far out we're going at, this is day 6, so there's still time for the Storm Prediction Center to get a little bit more confidence regarding the possibility of severe weather. But don't at all think that this will be the final forecasted chance we're going to see severe weather in the Midwest, because that's far from the case, and more likely than not, we're going to see that chance rise by the time we get closer and closer into early next week once the Storm Prediction Center gets a little bit more confidence regarding the severe weather. Now, in the Midwest, you're probably wondering what type of impacts should we see from this potential severe weather outbreak. So, of course, if we were to continue to move forward, there is another severe weather outbreak going on right over the southeast, and it's expected to move northward right over the Ohio area, but I'll get into that in a little bit. Let's first focus on this next potential Midwest severe weather outbreak, because I do believe it has the possibility of being more significant. So if we were to continue to move forward, we see that there's going to be an upper level low coming off the west coast, and eventually it will move into the Midwest. And this upper level low has a decent amount of cold air, of course, surrounding the low level center, or the upper level center, I should say, and that will allow for just enough instability to exist over the Midwest for thunder showers to develop. As we do see, this area of thunder showers is pretty large. It's bringing a heavy amount of rainfall over a relatively large area, so I wouldn't rule out the possibility of flash flooding. But again, they're still 5 days out. We're gonna really need to iron out where exactly those thunderstorms will develop. That still has yet to be seen. Really all depends on this ridge just to the east of this storm system. But in terms of the impacts, to really get a good idea of what type of impacts we're going to see, let's take a look at some of the things that will really help determine what type of impacts we'll see when it comes to these severe thunderstorms. So one of the things we need to take a look at is the convective available potential energy levels, because a higher amount of available potential energy means that there's more lift, and when there's more lift, that certainly increases the possibility of not only damaging winds because the pressure is lower along the surface, but it also definitely enhances a chance of hail associated with these thunderstorms, since the lift would be very strong in areas where the convective available potential energy levels will be very strong. And as you can see, during the Monday time frame, we're in the deep oranges to the darker reds, so this makes you believe that damaging winds and large hail are almost guaranteed when it comes to a severe weather event like this. If the scenario were to form in this sort of manner, which still has yet to be seen, but I think more likely than not, you guys should expect a severe weather threat that at the very least will bring damaging winds and hail over some of these states like Kansas, Oklahoma, especially extending into the northern portion of Texas, and even extending into Missouri and Iowa. You could get involved as well when it comes to damaging winds and large hail. Now, a bigger question I'm sure a lot of you guys might have is, will there be a tornado threat associated with this storm? So when there's a strong amount of lift, of course, that always begs the question if we're going to see tornadoes. And a big thing that will help determine that is taking a look at the wind shear in the mid-levels of the atmosphere, because for a tornado to develop, we need a strong amount of wind shear that's strong enough to be able to develop sort of a circular motion in the mid-levels of the atmosphere for a tornado to develop, and of course strong downdrafts, which will certainly be the case in a severe weather event like this. But the key thing will be, will the wind shear be strong enough? And as you can see, right around the Monday time frame into early Tuesday, we see that the wind shear is certainly quite strong, so a tornado threat is certainly likely. It's still a bit uncertain this far out when it comes to how severe this tornado threat will be. As you can see, we see that change in wind direction with height, which is the definition of wind shear. So this makes me believe that at the very least, there will be a tornado threat. How strong it'll be, that still has yet to be seen. However, another thing I want to show you guys is a height anomaly, because that also gives a good idea of exactly how much instability there will be in the atmosphere. Of course, we're expecting to see a high amount of available potential energy, but in terms of instability, this upper level low will have a decent amount of cold air, but there's going to be another trough just to the north of it that should supply it with even more cooler air. And we see this ridge is quite strong, definitely a lot stronger than usual for the month of April. That's bringing that strong southerly flow to tap into that very warm Gulf of Mexico water. So the instability will be there. However, I will say that the instability won't be extreme, mainly due to the fact that this is an upper level low, which is disconnected from the jet stream. And of course, just to the north of the jet stream, or not too far from the jet stream, that's where you encounter the very cold and polar air mass that isn't really associated with an upper level low, because the upper level low is cut off from the jet stream, which is pretty much an area in the atmosphere that separates the very cold polar air to the warmer, more moderate air temperatures we see just to the south of it. So that should help it limit it from being, let's say, an extreme tornado threat, I'll say, because I'll say it would be an extreme tornado threat if we were to see the jet stream dip all the way this far south into the Midwest to really enhance that wind shear. However, the good news is that this is just an upper level low, which still is capable of producing a tornado threat. I want to make that clear, but just not as extreme as it could be, thanks to the fact that the jet stream is a little bit too far north for that to happen. Eventually, this upper level low will converge with this jet stream, but it's going to be too far north by the time that happens, to a point where it won't really encounter the much warmer temperatures this far up northward and the warmer Gulf of Mexico for the instability to be strong enough for the severe weather threat, if any, to be as severe this far up north. So based on what I'm seeing, damaging winds and large hail is certainly likely by the time we approach early next week, and some sort of tornado threat. I'll get in a little bit more detail once we get a little bit more certainty with the forecast, but definitely expect that on the Monday timeframe, and potentially even into the Tuesday timeframe for the areas a little bit further northward into the Midwest. But it is less likely by the Tuesday timeframe, because like I said, the instability won't be as strong by the time this approaches the northern Midwest. Let's say the states like Minnesota and northern Iowa and Dakotas. It's less likely you're going to experience a severe weather, as I think it will mainly be relegated a little bit further southward into the Midwest. But definitely keep that in mind. I'll certainly keep you guys updated over the next several days regarding this severe weather threat. Let's take a look back at the precipitation forecast from the GFS model to really give you guys a better idea of the timing of when these thunderstorms should develop. So based on the GFS model, it really expects these thunder showers to develop right around the late Monday timeframe, right over Oklahoma should be the heart of it. Oklahoma City, Norman, Oklahoma, you definitely need to watch out, and extending into Kansas as well. This could extend into the overnight hours on Tuesday before eventually we see that the air stabilizes. While it does have a very low pressure, there isn't enough warm air to really make the to create a strong amount of lift over this area. So we mainly see this as more so a heavy rain threat rather than a severe weather threat, which is certainly good news. But definitely keep that in mind for the northern Midwest as well. Heavy rainfall should be right over the northern Midwest by the Tuesday to Wednesday timeframe, along with strong gusty winds. And of course, pay attention to a possibility of snowfall in the western portions of North Dakota and Montana as well. And now let's take a look a little bit more forward into the future. So we do see it's going to be relatively quiet, a little bit warmer than average by the time we approach early next week for the Northeast, thanks to the strong ridge. So definitely keep that in mind. So now let's take a look at something that's happening in closer to the short-term future, which is this severe weather threat right over the southeast that's expected to move northward into the Great Lakes region as well. But taking a look at the radar, This is very concerning for the panhandle of Florida, including the southern portions of Alabama and Georgia, thanks to the amount of heavy rainfall we're seeing, and this is falling at a very fast clip. So we do have a flash flood warning issued for several counties over the panhandle of Florida and southern Alabama, and I certainly wouldn't be surprised if these flash flood warnings extend further northward thanks to the heavy amount of rain we're seeing. So definitely make sure to take cover, especially during the evening time where it's going to be very difficult to see where you're driving in on the roads. Make sure to stay away from those creeks, and if you live in a flood prone area, definitely take the necessary precautions, and if you see a body of water, turn around, don't drown, because typically the water you see on the road is a lot deeper than what you'd expect. So it's better to be just safe than sorry and not drive over that flooded roadway, because I've seen it myself from a first person perspective, getting close to floodwaters. The floodwaters are certainly a lot deeper on the roadways than what you'd expect, especially when you're driving. So definitely pay very close attention to that right over the southeast. And then we do have some rain showers that are a little bit lighter over Arkansas. So definitely watch out for that as we continue to move on into the evening time. And of course, watch out for the possibility of severe thunderstorms developing out of some of these thunder showers where there is a decent amount of instability. I'm going to show you guys the temperatures right now. So here's how the temperatures as well as the current radar looks right now, and we clearly see a pretty big difference when it comes to the temperatures. We see that just to the east of the thunder showers, the temperatures are hovering right around the 70s, even an 80-degree reading right over Tampa. And while to the west of these thunder showers, the temperatures are certainly cooler, not a ton much colder, but it is certainly cooler, hovering more so around the 60s, even some 50-degree readings over portions of Texas. So this is certainly enough to produce severe thunderstorms, especially since we're seeing a lot of that warm air just move northward at a very fast pace, and it's picking up a lot of that warm Gulf of Mexico water. So definitely keep that in mind over the next several hours in the southeast. Now, in terms of the timing of these thunderstorms, so we should continue to see these thunderstorms just stick around over the Florida Panhandle and southern Alabama and Georgia, which certainly is a pretty big concern when it comes to flash flooding. Even the overnight hours, it's still going to stay over the Georgia area, and then by the morning time, we'll see that the rain will move northward into the Ohio River Valley as well. And we could see thunderstorms associated with some of these rain showers over the Ohio River Valley. So make sure to watch out for that, as I wouldn't say it'll move in, but probably until the noon to early afternoon time on Thursday. That's when the instability should be at its highest, and we see the temperature readings change very quickly, and the instability certainly increases as it continues to head further northward, because we clearly see just to the to the east of these thunder showers, temperatures are hovering around the mid 60s, but just to the northwest of these thunder showers, we see that temperatures are in the 40s, and that's certainly enough to create severe weather. As I'll say, damaging winds will be the most the biggest impact associated with these thunderstorms, along with the small possibility of tornadoes, because we clearly see there is quite a bit of wind moving around the center of circulation, as there's bound to be a strong amount of wind shear, as we clearly see that right here where these two we have one area where the winds are coming from northeasterly direction, but another area where it's coming from southeasterly direction, which is bound to enhance a shear right over Ohio. So definitely make sure to pay very close attention to that as we approach the Thursday afternoon time frame. But eventually it should move out of Ohio, and then by Friday into the overnight, expect a fairly heavy amount of rainfall right over the northeast. In terms of how much rainfall you should expect right over the Ohio River Valley, including Indiana, we see that you could expect anywhere between 2 to 3 inches of rainfall. So if you live in more vulnerable areas when it comes to flooding, you definitely need to watch out for that. Maybe around an inch or two of rainfall this Friday right over the northeast. Not a ton of rainfall, but since we've already been experiencing a heavy amount of rainfall pretty much all year long throughout northeast, bringing the bringing the water a little bit higher to many of these rivers. That's certainly a concern you definitely need to be aware of if you live in more vulnerable areas. And then, of course, southeast. It's very concerning because you could easily experience anywhere between 4 to 6 inches of rain and potentially even more than that in localized areas, which makes me, and it's going to fall at a very fast clip, which makes me very concerned when it comes to the flash flooding threat over the southeast. So for tonight, definitely make sure to take the necessary precautions. But that's it for now, guys, and I thank you guys for watching.